Okay. Since here's how I want to start as a way to get our appetizer going. Just a week ago, was it a week ago? It don't really matter. It's part of the story, but it's not part of the story.
Okay.
But you said, Gwendolyn, you should download Signal. That's what Aicila said. And I said, okay, yeah, sure. And then what happens with a group of people who are so competent? What happens when they are sharing plans, in my opinion, sensitive plans through Signal?
Yeah.
How do you include the wrong person? Because I made our group, but I had to invite you to our group.
Yep.
And you had to accept to be in the group.
Yep. I will tell you, you know how I have a positive spin in life. I'm an apocalyptomist. So
You did.
And there's a part of me that says, well, maybe someone is trying to help us know how bad things are by doing things like accidentally, mixing a number up, or because if you read about resistance movements in authoritarian regimes, which whether you agree or not that's where we're at, it does seem like there's some attempt to go there. The best thing is for bureaucrats and assistants and people in positions of limited but momentary influence to do things like make mistakes or drag their feet or file too much paperwork, slow things down, right? So there's this part of me that was just like, maybe that's like a hacker collective. I know Anonymous has been talking about stuff.
I know, right?
So who knows? But I took it as a sign that somebody's trying to let us know how bad it actually is. Like, by the way, there's a whole military platform that is SCIF. I know nothing, but it's secure. Yes. You have to have and maybe the reason they use Signal is because so many of the people in the administration are not in any way have no security clearance, which is its own issue, right? But
yes,
they don't qualify for SCIF, which and this is, by the way, 100% hearsay, rumors, and made up. I have no idea what people do and do not qualify for. So, I know you probably don't think that I know what I'm talking about, but just in case you accidentally think I do, this is just my idea.
It's not too far-fetched. I mean, like, what? So his claim to fame is being on The Real World. Okay.
Was he on The Real World? I didn't realize that was the reality show he was on.
Yes, girl.
Ah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, reality.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, okay. No, wait, that's the other guy. Isn't that the other guy? He was on The Real World. He was on the other guy was on The Real World. Hegseth is the Fox News host.
Right, okay.
At the end of the day, you're still not qualified. Who the fuck cares? Where they came from?
Which reality show qualifies you to run the country? Apparently one that you made yourself. I don't know. I feel bad for satire writers and dystopian authors because you have to go super extreme now to make it sound unbelievable. Because it's like The Onion. Are you familiar with The Onion?
I love The Onion.
Right? Like I'll look at a title and I'll be like, that feels like an Onion title. And then, oh no, that actually happened.
That actually happens.
I did love, I think it's Goldberg. Someone asked him if he was worried about retaliation. And he said, I'm a journalist. This is my job. We can't be sitting around here worrying about that. We need to just do our jobs. And I thought, well, thank you.
Yeah.
And also interesting that one of the few journalists that's willing to do their job got added, which to me just points to maybe somebody's trying to help us.
Inside. Someone's on the inside doing a little God's work.
Just doing some help. Like whoever it is, we appreciate you.
That's a good. I appreciate that positive take on it, because like you find yourself asking. Because no offense, I don't believe they're that
No, I don't think they're super competent.
Yeah. So I have to think, okay, so what's the real deal that's going on here? Because this is not, they're just not that strategic, clever, use any of the words. I don't see that. But I thought to myself, even if in this world, because we recently spoke about meritocracy, and I can't remember which one said if you want somebody who's competent, then get a white man. And I'm looking at this clown show of a cabinet, of an administration.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, really? Like, we don't really have to work too hard to get proof of how meritocracy doesn't do what they believe it does.
Yeah.
Every day they're doing something and saying something beyond, committing crimes that
Right.
says,
Beyond that.
the point.
Right.
Beyond,
And that tiny thing.
I mean, just a couple of crimes here and there, but a felon, it tracks. So it's like you just keep giving me examples of what we've been talking about. But you have to really let go of the cult juice. You got to really let go of the nipple to even admit to yourself that, oh my goodness, these people are. That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot for some people to say, what? Santa isn't real. Oh my, yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't ready. They're not ready. The people who voted for this, they refuse to eat the crow. It's like, you want that fried? You want it deep fried? You want? let me play our intro.
Crow. Oh my goodness.
Let me get the intro going. We'll get right back to it. Oh, okay. So as I was saying, so here's something I'm gonna throw this at you and let you lead us into our topics. We can play that one. But recently seeing that where we are as a country, and it's I believe a number of us are still in the clouds because nothing feels really extreme. Forget the fact that the incompetence is on full display. Forget that, because that's not a lot. But I haven't had anyone come knocking down my door. I haven't had anyone freeze my bank account yet. So clearly we're not in the Handmaid's Tale yet. Like, we're not there. However, when you start seeing that, because there's not a lot of immigrants, illegal immigrants and whomever, migrants to deport, when you start coming for your allies at the border, at the airport, when you start taking the lady from Canada and locking her up for 3, 4, 5 weeks, the guy who's just coming in from Tijuana with his fiance from Germany, and he gets locked up for 3 weeks, when you start moving people around, when you're in Hawaii, coming after a lady, oh my God, I think she had lived in Hawaii from the Philippines for like 30, 40 years, and she is a representative's assistant. And I was like, what? When you start going there because you don't have the numbers and you're pretty much ethnic cleansing the country, then you got to recognize that you're not in the country you were in on January, 20th?
19th.
19th, thank you. Well, I mean, the 20th was like knocking on the door. It's like, this is the last day. So we should have had a party the last day. But yes, you are right, the 19th.
Well, and
we're not there anymore.
I think the thing that I find chilling about all of this is the disrespect for due process.
Oh my
God. Let's be clear. I love Boondock Saints. I love this movie. It's about vigilantes. We all have that fantasy at some point in our lives to just be like, let's just get rid of the bad guys. And the challenge is who gets to define the bad guys. And and then there's that shorthand of bad guy is someone who X. However, anytime you get into it with people, there's always exceptions. And so usually the exceptions are decided by who's ever got the most power. And right now, the people who are in power don't seem to have a lot of respect for anyone who isn't exactly like them. And right now, you're right. Nobody's knocking on our door. And the challenge is that with due process being overturned, or at least deeply challenged in so many places, judges' orders, the judge who ordered them to turn the Venezuelan plane back with the Venezuelan immigrants on it was not a lefty judge by any means. Like,
right?
He's not one of us, if you will. However, I think we need to expand our definition of one of us, which is, are we people who believe in civil discourse, in the rule of law, in due process, in the checks and balances of our country, which means some people get to do things that we don't agree with, morally even. However, we agree with their right to practice that in their way. Or are you one of us because you look right and you say the right things and you pledge loyalty?
Yes.
And that second one is the one that I have rejected multiple times in multiple ways. And I'm very hopeful that all of this hullabaloo will perhaps draw more of those people out who are willing to say, actually, even though I don't like the Colorado, I want to say that there was a college in Southern Colorado that is having someone come who's going to speak, who's a white supremacist, or he's got some pretty gross views. And the 9 News, I think, was interviewed the college president and said, why aren't you going to disallow this? And he said, well, I feel like when you draw a line around speech, you get to slippery slope. And we've seen some places where that's really been a problem. He said, I'm not going to go. I think everything that he has to say is abhorrent. I have in every way expressed that I disagree with his stances, and I encourage people not to attend. However, I'm not going to tell a student group they can't have this guy on campus.
Right.
And I thought, I think there's a way, and it's tricky too, right? Because sometimes hate speech leads to violent behavior.
Yes.
And that is also a challenge. However, his point was that if you don't let him speak, it goes underground, and what's underground can't be addressed. And I agree with that too. Like it's not gonna defang the situation. It's just gonna inflame people's feeling of being persecuted. So
let me add to that, because when you mentioned defining good people, I wrote this down. So my husband, a few years back, wanted to rewatch The 100. You ever seen that little sci-fi show where the people, they send the kids down? I hated that show. Take it back. I didn't hate the show per se. Some of their main characters, that one blonde chick, she was the daughter of one of the people, got on my last nerve. The fact that she was okay with pushing the boundaries and going too far and torturing people when it was for a good cause.
Right.
But then would quickly give someone like the 3rd degree and want to kick him out for doing the exact same thing. I'm like, you need to pick a fucking team, kid. Like, you get on all of my nerves, but that's common.
Yeah, it
People
is.
see it as, well, I'm one of the good guys. You are committing crimes. You are torturing people. You're not a good person. In fact, there are no good or bad people. It doesn't even exist. You know how they say with the good guys with guns, that they were, but that good guy with the gun shot another good guy.
Right.
Because he thought he was the bad guy.
Yep.
Hey, okay. So I didn't finish the show. I didn't finish it. That flip-flopping thing got on my last nerve, my last raw nerve. Irritated me. But I agree. If you believe in that kind of, hate speech, have at it. Have at it. I say, say what you want to say. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to even listen to it, but you have every right to put your foolishness out on the street. That's fine. And at this point, as I have said, because I had plans to leave Facebook, I did, but I'm at a place where I'm like, you know what? Let me not leave just yet. Let me use the few little hours I do get on there to share some of what's happening, to put it in people's face. I have, like a lot of people, learned a great deal about some of my ex-coworkers and some of my through marriage, family members. I want to make sure that's clear. And I said to myself, wow, you were in my circle. You person who is saying some of the most disgusting things is you're in my circle. Okay.
Yeah.
So now that you're seeing that people's civil rights are being completely ignored, you gonna say something? Like, when exactly are you going to say something? Because a few months ago, it was, this is better for the country, and it's this, and it's that, and da 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 da, and we believe in God, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what they're doing here, these concentration camps, America is on human rights watch lists. There are travel advisories to not travel to the US. We are now that country. That's who we are. Are y'all going to say something? We all do we thank you for your service. And then look how you treat all these veterans.
Yeah.
Mind you, some veterans voted for this, but whatever. That's another topic, another day, another dinner.
That's another dinner. Yeah.
Silence. So here's what I want to lead us to, and then we'll play our title clip here. But the person that they are snatching up, they're going through their phones.
Yep.
They are going through. I read an article about how they're even asking to go through the photos and the social media accounts of people who have a green card or are applying for a green card. I need to put the correct article in our show notes, but I was like, is that not crossing a couple of lines? Okay. Let me play our topic title, and then we'll let Aicila do what she does so well. All right, last one. I'm gonna throw it to you. Now I don't have Echo in my home. I'm not an Amazon person like that. I believe in Google, but they're not too far behind. But there is an article going around. I haven't done my due diligence and research, people, so forgive me. But that you can no longer turn off the "don't listen to my conversations." Like that setting is no longer available. There's no way to opt out of it. And I was like, wow. Now, they were already listening before. Our machines are always listening.
Yep.
But now there's no option to turn it off. All right, Aicila, surveillance culture. Get into the people.
So I kind of want to start with how I feel like this attaches to meritocracy, since one of the things that you hear a lot in arguments against being upset about surveillance culture is, well, I haven't done anything wrong, so I don't have anything to worry about. And that seems like a reasonable approach, except that living in a culture that is meritocracy based means that the assumptions about who's doing right and wrong is often perceived based on things that have nothing to do with their actions. So, if you and I were wandering through Borders, the bookstore that used to exist, apparently they're gone now, sorry, you have a much higher likelihood of being followed than I do. Even though my friends at work there were like, the white suburban moms were absolutely the bigger shoplifters, right? So meritocracy creates this like unfair and inaccurate view, and then privacy can give us a little bit of space from that. Not based on our external identity, but once again, like if I post something and you post something, it'll be perceived differently. And so that privacy gives us a little room. It's because it's not really about what you're doing right or wrong. It's about how the authority system chooses to engage with it from that perspective. So I just wanted to make that connection before we dive all the way into the whole surveillance culture piece, because I do feel like that's a slope that gets us in there, when you're just wandering around. And I am the first to admit, I love tech and I love convenience. So I was a big adopter of all the things. Google, I had Google, the little dots, I don't remember what they're called, and Homes all over my house. And I loved that I could talk to it and tell it when I was coming home. And I have been slowly divesting. And some of that is, I mentioned the YK Hong. I follow them now on YouTube. I used to follow them on TikTok, but they left for I don't know, weird reasons. Uh, and one of the things that they talk about that I think is really important for people to recognize is that right now, and I think we're moving a little into a new era, but for the most part, surveillance culture, they call it biometric theft, using your
Mm.
facial ID, your
Mhm.
fingerprint ID. Right now, it's pretty opt-in. However, by opting into it in our personal lives and in all of these, like at the airport and stuff like that, we become so used to it
Yes.
that when they start making it something that you just have to do, it's harder to notice.
Mhm.
And I was super
Mhm.
guilty of that. Like, started watching their videos, and they talked about how they don't use the face, the photo when they go through the TSA, through the checkpoints. They always opt out and ask them to check her face. And she's like, "Look, or they're like, look, I make videos. I'm all over the internet. Obviously, my face is out there. It's not about my face not being out there. It's about me opting in." And especially when it comes to places that could become state surveillance,
Mm.
or state control, because then it could become something like, you can't go to the hospital unless you have the right kinds of IDs, and we'll have people dying on the street, or you're not allowed. Like, it starts to create a very stark divide between the people who
Mm.
get to participate in the system and the people who don't. And we already have a certain amount of that, right? Like, if you don't, like, if you look at in Denver, if you want to pay for a parking spot in a lot of places, you can't use cash. You have to use a card. And
Mm.
how many homeless people have a card? And so we're already kind of getting to a place where it's really there's no public payphones. If you don't have a cell phone, it's very difficult to make a phone call unless you are around somebody else's phone. And there used to be payphones all over the place. We had a systemic structure that has been slowly dismantled. And so just recognizing that this move towards the things that surveil us also removes the any sort of like social movement or even social support for people who are
Mm.
quote unquote not enough accepted. I would say not wealthy enough.
Mhm.
We're very anti um, poverty. We criminalize it. And so that to me, and that's also, I read some articles. What made me think of this many, many years ago is I did a TV show, or sorry, a podcast on my other podcast. And I was looking into China, and this was probably like 8 years ago. And I was reading reports about the Chinese and how they don't really feel like they have a lot of surveillance, and they feel very free. Like, they feel like they have access to all the information they want.
Hmm.
And it really got me thinking, okay, it's demonstrated, it's 100% proven that they have a lot of surveillance, right? But they don't feel it. At least the people who are being interviewed in these reports, right? I would expect that there are probably some people that do. And I was like, "Oh, okay, so that if I don't think of us as being exceptional, because I'm not into the whole American exceptionalism, that means we could equally have that kind of surveillance and be completely unaware of it, right?"
That's okay, so two things. Surveillance. So when I was in school, went to college in New York City, right? And I remember we did a scavenger hunt at FIT because it
Mhm.
was part of, like, if you're a freshman, we have activities for people to do. And there is an owl at FIT on a specific corner, but it's not a real owl, it's a camera, right?
Huh.
It's the camera. And it was one of the scavenger hunt things for find the owl, da 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 da. And when you look up, you're like, oh snap. But I just know for New York itself, well, there's a camera like on every corner. Like, I'd walk the street, but you can see the cameras every single place. If you've ever been on a cruise, there's a
Mhm.
lot of goddamn cameras. Like,
Mhm.
try committing a crime because there's a camera somewhere beyond, like, not in your room, but there are cameras everywhere. But if you think about it, we get so used to looking for a camera. Now, with a lot of us having video camera security systems on our homes that we can do ourselves without ADT and all these other people,
Yep.
when a crime is committed, or when someone does a hit and run, or something happens in your neighborhood, there is the Ring neighborhood app, or should say like circle, that says, has anyone seen this car? Because everybody is now surveilling everybody. Like,
Mhm.
we all have access to it, so we no longer react funny to, is that a camera up there? Like, we just completely ignore like, oh yeah, we're, cameras are just part of how we live life. Having somebody watch us when we come into a store, go to the casino, all the things, because cameras are everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere. And so you tune it out. So I'm thinking years back in my retail years when we were on the cusp of using technology with cell phones. We
Mm.
wanted to have customers be able to opt in, that when they walked in the door, we would know that they were in the store by using their phone.
Hmm.
That we could say, hey, Mr. So and so, thank you for coming in. Yes, we have this latest sale on blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was like, how do I give you a better experience? Well, I have to know that you're in the store and I have to have access to what you have purchased. And so if you think about like the early 90s to the 2010s or so, when we were all, well, I'm using this like in big general terms, we were all giving up our info for these better experiences, these
Mm-hmm.
better deals, these better what have you. The whole idea was, yes, track me, so I can
Yeah.
get great coupons and I can get a wonderful gift and I can have the convenience. Now, let me go back even further. Gwendolyn remembers the time in retail when we kept people's credit cards in a binder,
Mm-hmm.
a paper binder that didn't have a lock on it. We had the credit card numbers. We had the dog's birthday, the kid's birthday. We had your favorite color, because it was all about clienteling. Do
Yeah.
you know your customer?
Yeah.
And that behavior from the 80s and the early 90s ran into the late 90s, even in the 2000s, where I would get a customer who says, well, don't you have my credit card on file?
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, no,
Yeah.
no. And they were so trusting. They would actually put in the credit card number in an email
Yep.
and in live chat. Now, in live chat, it actually takes it all out. It just makes it to like a little asterisk. And we're like, what are you doing? Because we were so trusting of everybody. It's like, but I know you guys. I've shopped here for years.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, we just give stuff away without any thought because, well, that's just where we are now. Like we don't even think about it, but it's the convenience
Mm-hmm. Well,
that I
and
don't have to carry this.
there's that. And I think what you're talking about too is there is that feeling. Like I used to work in Tacoma, Washington, and I would go to this one Thai restaurant for lunch regularly enough that I didn't have to order. I'd walk in and they'd point to a table and bring me my food. So it was very predictable. They knew what I wanted. And I one time thought about ordering something different, and then my food shut. I never had to wait because I just knew, and they made it as soon as I walked in. So it was very fast. It was helpful because I worked downtown. And I felt, great service, right? Like I always left a great tip. I love, I ate there. I love their food anyway, but I felt really included. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that, that's a thing. Like we trust people that we build relationships with. And like if I'm working with you and you work for a big box store, I might trust you, but that's not the same as being able to trust the store because you don't have the power over that system or how they manage things or what they're doing. But that person to person trust is actually what our entire society is, like all of human society is built on. And so I think that's the other part of it is we were not ready for the scale of like fraud and exploitation that the internet could unleash.
No.
And it's such a bummer to me because I was definitely, one of the young utopian into the tech, like, oh, we're gonna create all this option, right? Like the world's gonna be easier.
Yes.
We're gonna work 3 days a week and have time for art and caring for our family, and we could. That's the thing is all the technology we have could create that.
Yeah.
And there's some antiquated ideas that are standing between us and actual liberation. And really thinking about, I think also the privacy thing that's interesting is when I think, and it took me a long time to sort of understand the challenge in this, when I think about sharing my information, I think about the things that I'd want to do with it, like give your better customer service or make things a little more convenient or make things flow more smoothly. I don't think about how it could be used in a harmful way because it's just not where I start. And that's a dangerous thing to do. You should never think other people are going to behave like you one way or the other. And I think that's also why a lot of people are so trusting, is for the most part, no, people don't actually want to take advantage of other people.
Yes.
You know, they might be opportunistic. Like if there's $5 on the ground, they'll pick it up, but they're not going to go hit you to take your $5. Like that's not how that works most of the time. So I think that's, so to me, it's, you know, it's kind of hopeful. Like people just generally have that. And what we have to, I follow YK, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go through the airport, and I'm not gonna do the picture. I'm gonna ask them to look at my face. And I was scared, like to go through and not follow the procedure, because there's also, you know, and I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen? And I thought, well, that's really interesting. Like, and that's why I said, oh, I gotta start divesting. I've gotten so comfortable opting in.
Yes.
I now feel like I'm doing something wrong, worthy of getting in trouble, or, you know, having a consequence when I don't. And that's what they were talking about, is that we get so comfortable that we feel like it's wrong not to. And then it's very easy for it to turn into something you have to do in order to move through society safely. And
Oh,
that's a
man,
problem.
that is a problem. Let's go here. Why do we value privacy? Can we talk about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I did so much research on this. I love,
No,
you know
I
how much
got you, sis.
you
I
know how
got
much I
you.
love research. Well, so there's a bunch of psychological evidence that shows that privacy is a really important part of our development as humans. And uh, there was a very interesting I'm trying to remember exactly how it was worded. They were talking about, you and I are probably in the last generation that had to seek stimulation.
Mm,
We live, and that's kind of a default. We seek stimulation, got to find people to talk to, got to go out. And
mhm,
I think part of what's contributing to modern isolation is that people are so overstimulated because it's just everywhere. They're seeking uh not stimulation. However, because we don't, I don't think we have a lot of like language or skills or awarenesses about how to seek that. So it ends up being isolation instead of being regenerative. And privacy is a really important way that you can be alone with your thoughts. You can try things on, you can quiet your mind, you can get away from stimulation, and feel that sense of expansion that only, and that's a foundation for creative problem solving, for creativity in general, for social cohesion, for spirituality. And and that um and that reflection piece, there's a study they did that I thought was even more interesting, is that we have like a social framework for our brain, and that's how we interact with others. And then there's sort of that reflection framework in our brain, that's where we integrate and kind of learn, kind of, I think, develop an understanding of our values and our morals and our impact from that internal place of awareness. And they actually kind of don't overlap. And if you're looking at a
mm,
picture of yourself, it will stimulate that social framework. So if you're scrolling social media on your own and your little face is up in the corner, you're by, like, the way that your brain works, you literally can't get into that space of self-reflection and integration. It's similar to sleep, that space that you go to for reflection while you're awake. Does some of the same things that your brain does while you're sleeping. It's a very regenerative space. And so for those of us who do love scrolling, I apologize for sharing this evidence-based awareness, and that we'll have stuff in the show notes. You can go read the very dry paper on it yourself. That ultimately, that is not going to allow you to regenerate the way that you need to. And I think it's part of why people are so polarized and so short-tempered. They're
well,
genuinely not getting enough actual regeneration for their neurons to handle more interaction.
okay. I have a thought I want to add to that.
Please do.
I'm going to share our slide again. Then I'm going to add on to that because I literally had this chat yesterday. But it was, we talk about that privacy provides the condition to exercise and improve self-conscious processes like self-evaluation, contemplation of one's thoughts and emotions, problem solving, creative thought, and spirituality. So let me go to where you went. When you mentioned we're like the last generation, it's not, well, you didn't say like, we are the last generation that had to go
I think
seek
so.
out. I believe so, because when you think about the young people today, and I know I'm using young, but everybody's young. Like you can be 91, you're still a young lady in my head. People today are, everything is technical and everything is in media, right? They don't get outside to experience life.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we would get on the bus or take a walk to, say, a theme park or the museum or the library? A lot of people do things just from their tablet or their phone. And we
Mm-hmm.
wonder why people have communication problems, because they don't talk the way that we had to talk.
Yeah.
Like, I had kangaroos. Did you have roos? Because in my roos, I carried a quarter. At one point, it was a dime, but the
Mm-hmm.
payphone got expensive, so it was a quarter. It
Yeah.
was my roo. It still had a little pocket. You zip it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Out. We always had money to call home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we had to talk to each other. We had to go outside and play and build these skills of working with people who didn't look like us. We could fight one
Mm-hmm.
moment, 20 minutes later, we're friends again. And the
Yep.
best of friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a chance to go through all of the emotions and build a certain level of emotional intelligence. But we also enjoyed and were actively present in our lives. Yes,
Yes.
I have technology. I don't have FOMO, because I grew up with a TV that if you didn't catch the show, you didn't catch the show.
I know.
We just missed it.
Yep.
Yes, I got a DVR when it came out and I never watched it. Why? Because I grew up when if you missed it, you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you know how they would say, hey, we got to start deleting some stuff on your DVR because there's tons of shows here, but it's like there's no more room to store. It's like, oh, really? I saved that? Because it was not how I was raised. It's not how we were raised. But this newer generation, they don't really, and I hate to be judgmental because it's going to come across that way. Go ahead doing it. They don't experience life. They don't experience life. They go out and they're all wallflowers. They don't dance.
Mm.
They don't laugh. And the laughs they do have is kind of like suspect. We talked about why they have a hard time making friends. They grew up in a world where everybody's your friend, and
Mm.
everybody also gets a trophy for just showing up.
Yeah.
And if I may, we didn't give them, and I know I'm using a lot of we's and they's, but just work with it.
Okay.
Um, they didn't get the sage advice of be careful of the company you keep, have a little discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Birds of a feather flock together. If Jimmy jumps off the bridge, are you jumping off the bridge? Well, hell yeah, because Jimmy jumped. you know, it's a different time.
Yeah.
Completely different time. And because they don't know anything other than, I'm going to say, not saying no to being surveilled.
Well, and I
And
think it's just they're very conditioned. We
mhm,
are socially, all of us, very conditioned at this point. And the conversations around privacy are often this like, well, I don't need privacy. I'm not important. That was the one I had. I love
mm,
convenience. It's I haven't done anything wrong, like we talked about before. And I want to read this one part. These studies, they talked about we consider privacy a socio-environmental construct, as
mhm,
the person environment interaction determines both the shape of privacy and the beneficial functions that it can support. And social and cognitive studies agree that privacy is a voluntary and temporary condition of separation from public domain. So you have to be able to voluntarily and temporarily separate, which right now is kind of hard, I think. And it
mm,
originates from the intersection between the individual's features and the environment. And it provides, when they talk about the things that it provides, emotional regulation, stress recovery, enhancing creativity. These are important things, self-soothing, and it's, but it has to be voluntary. So it's not, I push you away, right? It's,
Yeah.
I choose to separate, to drink deeply of the marrow of life. And and I'll tell you, like, and as someone who used to really have a lot, I've meditated for long periods of time. I used to be a very solitary person. I got in the habit of being connected. And when I was visiting my family member in the fall, there was a weather event, and I didn't have internet or cell service or power. And I was like, "Oh, I am way more connected than I realized still, even though I was less on social media." And I thought, "Well, I don't like that." Like, I've been deliberately finding ways to be, what you said, more present, because I do think that young people have been raised with this, so in some ways they might also have better mechanisms for managing it because it's not as alien to them, but I think most of us, we're just constantly bombarded with stimulation and engagement. I hesitate to call it connection because I don't think it necessarily
Yeah.
feeds us in that
Yeah.
way. And just finding ways to pause is, it's okay not to be available all the time. It's okay.
That's interesting. I'm not so certain if the younger people, because they were raised with, I'm going to say just being on 10, if they recognize just how noisy it is, because you never had anything other than.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, right? Because it's not us, but,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's
I
not
think,
us, so we're just, we're just tossing out ideas, people just asking
yeah.
questions. Because for me, knowing that, okay, so I'm a loner.
Mhm.
Gwendolyn's a loner. How I got married? Shit, hell if I know. Because my husband, he's an extra loner. I thought I was bad. Oh my God. Brother's bad. So we understand our time together, which we love, but we also recognize, because we're both loners, we need our time apart.
Mm.
And we don't ever go like, oh my God, you don't. It's like, no, no, no. I'm gonna go do this. And we're gamers. So he may be in one room playing Xbox. I'm in the other room doing PS4.
Nice.
So and it comes right when you find the key for your lock.
Yeah.
It works. So we understand time together, and then we understand time apart and having our own friends, and sometimes we share some friends, that kind of thing. So we get it, right?
Yeah.
There's an understanding there. But being a loner, I go outside and make time to meditate because I have to calm the brain and get my stuff together. And
Mhm.
I don't miss, like, I live with no notifications. I'm on do not disturb 80% of the day.
Mhm.
There's a small smidge where it's like the window is open. And even then I'm thinking, I don't think so. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I don't want notifications. I don't want a ding, a bell, a chirp. I want nada. Not a
Yeah.
damn.
Mhm.
And
And
I'm
I
a
think
tech
that's
person.
right.
I was like, hey, go ahead.
No, no, I was saying, like, I think that's really important because it takes you out of your thinking. It disrupts that
Yes.
ability to sink into your own thoughts or to even just sink into
Hmm.
your own presence. Like, you don't have to be thinking anything to get a benefit from that self-regulation, right?
Hmm. Hmm. But when you were speaking, like when you were sharing about being able to opt out, I'm going to use the
Mhm.
family home before we get into some of these numbers that we have here. Old school 70s baby. You don't close
Mhm.
the door in my house.
Mm.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying my house, but like my parents' house. So
Mhm.
we would go into the room. We didn't get to close the door unless, of course,
Mm.
we're changing clothes because this is not our house. You
Privacy.
don't own this house,
Yeah.
right? And you're seeing this new, forgive me, people, forgive me, this new age of parenting where, yes, do I believe in bodily autonomy? I most certainly do. Do I believe that your child deserves some privacy? I most certainly do. We're not gonna slam doors though. We're not doing that, right?
Right.
So there should be a place of, hey, I know I'm in your house, but a child deserves his, her, or their privacy as well.
Agreed.
Right. And it starts that I still have my journals. I still have my
Mhm.
seventh grade journal where you're putting in your most intimate thoughts and things and you hide it because you know your parents are going to clean your room, but you put it somewhere where you hope they don't find your journal. And if they do, are they going to read it?
Yeah.
You going to read it? Are you going to look at my stuff? Are you going to? So I want to bring this back to where we talked about in terms of surveillance, and I want to tie it into our current environment
Yeah.
where some of the people who were coming in on visas, education, work, whatever, they're going through their phone and their social media posts, and they're finding people who they say, you support Palestinians. And
Mm-hmm.
because of this, you could be part of this group. And, a lot of us see our phone as being the most private place
Mm-hmm.
that we have literally on our person at all times,
Yeah.
or something close to.
Yeah.
And we're at, and we love technology, but again, with these AI tools, we know the computers are listening. We didn't talk about, but in the news, the whole chat about cookies and
Mm-hmm.
accepting the cookies, which a lot of us, because the jargon is written to where you don't want to read, you're like, yeah, accept all, fine.
Yeah.
And it's almost written that way to just wear you down. Like, you're not going to read all 185 pages. Are
You're
you?
not going to read that. No one's reading that.
You're not going to read it. So you're like, yeah, accept it. Accept them. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And we just give up all this stuff without even thinking about it. We just give up all the cookies.
We give up all the cookies. I'm like, but I want the cookies. No. Well, and the challenge of it is that giving up a bit of privacy here and there. Yes, it is an exchange like you used to have in the store. I give you the ability to track me, you give me a coupon. We're kind of in a relationship.
Yeah.
But I can opt out and I know what you're doing.
Yes.
However, that does then get us used to this, just the way it works, right? Like we're just constantly in that.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're moving into a place of mass surveillance,
Mm-hmm.
that can negatively affect other human rights and freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing that. Like the most famous case as Malik Khalil, and the he expressed his freedom of expression and his freedom of speech and his freedom of assembly to say he didn't like something that our country was doing. And now he's in a detention center despite having a green card, because there's this, and that's where the due process thing is also really concerning. But they the challenge that I see with accepting surveillance culture is there are a lot of folks who really don't quite see the danger yet, and they may not see it until it gets a little closer, and by then it's going to be a little late. Yeah. We've always been violently oppressive to a wide swath of people and identities in our country that have fought to stay this side of not being destroyed. And what we're seeing in the last month or so, 2 months, is that being expanded to include Canadians and Germans, our allies, as you would say, green card holders.
Yep.
And that, if that's not alarming to people, it's because they are either not getting the information, because I do think there are a lot of bubbles, or it's being interpreted for them differently, or they're in a space of denial. And I have heard in different arenas, people, it's not good, but I'm just going to keep my head down. And I'm like,
yes,
that's not going to work this time. There's no way to keep your head down. This is a very different thing that is happening right now. And in some ways it's an opportunity, because we can see potentially, if we can turn this around, we can potentially maybe push some of these behaviors further away. Because like I said, as much as I do, they're not new behaviors. They are, however, creeping more into daily life and people that have traditionally not had to face them.
It's the okay. Let me go there. It's the silence for me. So there is a gentleman who I'm connected with on LinkedIn, another photographer, and he made a post about is LinkedIn a place for political posts? Now, he's a Caucasian man. So, He doesn't wake up in a political body. My whole
Right.
entire existence is when I
Yeah.
walk into any store, as you say, yeah, there's a high chance that I'm going to be followed, which I have been. I could post something, it can be interpreted some other way. This doesn't go away. This brown skin is 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know any other life than somebody feeling some kind of way when I walk into the room. That's how that is. But it's the silence. And there were people who were responding on a post similar to his. As one person said, LinkedIn was our reprieve. It's the one place where we didn't have to worry about politics. And you have Facebook and Instagram and all these other places, blue sky, to have these conversations. That's privilege because you're at a place where I don't care if so and so's human rights are being violated. Doesn't impact me. That's that bullshit. Because if
Mm-hmm.
it attacks one person, it attacks all of us.
Yep.
Every single one of us. The idea of I'm going to pretend like it's not happening doesn't work. It
No.
only gets worse. It only gets worse. And what does it look like? As I take a quick little sidestep here, where people say, well, I have a business persona, and then I have a personal persona. I was never taught that in my school of business. You are
Yeah.
who you are. Your
Mm-hmm.
values, what you stand for, people see it no matter where you are. There's not like some jacket you put on like Mr. Rogers and you pretend to be here, and then when you take it off, you go and write some disgusting things. You are who you are at all times.
Mm-hmm.
The people you're talking to, those potential customers, clients, who are you? Who are you? So yes,
Well, I think it's what you said when we did our show together. There's the guest filter. I have a work filter.
oh
And
yeah,
I happen to work with people that I can be pretty open with. So there's a lot of engagement. And there are days where you have to work. That's what's
yeah,
happening.
yes.
However, I'm not a different person.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's a distinction that is important for people to understand. You can have you can have some privacy and you can have some discretion
Mhm.
and you can still show up as yourself.
Yes. I am my business. Gwendolyn
Yeah.
is about creating stories, telling the story of people who they are as they are, which means I have to see them. I have to see them. This whole like, oh, we can all get along, that colorblind bullshit. I'm gonna call it what it is. That's how we got here too, because you act as if none of this is happening.
Yeah.
No, we don't see that. You have to see it because it's happening.
Yeah.
You can't tell my story and then act as if you don't see the pain and the scars from how I am being treated. That's insane. Well, it's
Yeah.
also privilege, but that's insane.
You're like, let's just call it
I'm
all the
just,
things it is.
it's both. It's both. So this goes back to what you were sharing earlier that 93% of adults say that being in control of who can get information about them is important. 74% feel this is very important, and another 19 say it's like somewhat important. That's interesting. Them numbers are interesting. We also have that 90% say that controlling when information, I love how that slide turned out, is collected about them is important. 65% think it's very important, and 25% say it's somewhat important. Keep this in mind. Some of the people who have our info who sell it, because they're like, well, I don't use the internet and I don't use this and I don't use that so people can't get it. Okay, well, your state sells your information. I would like to get a little bit of that money
Yeah.
since you're selling it to other people. But yeah, there are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of, I mean, at this point, do I believe you can scrub a good chunk? Yeah, but there's a lot that's out there. I mean,
Well, and this is my favorite part where we talk about how things work, right?
yeah,
There's services called Delete Me. Malwarebytes offers one where you can pay them to find public profiles and have them deleted. And there's tips. We talked about using Signal. Apple currently has decent privacy policies, but I personally wouldn't rely on any corporation to protect your privacy. You're going to we have to get a little old school here and take these things back into our own hands. Opt out of biometric checks at places like airports, anywhere that seems slightly official, because the more people that do it, the more normalized it is to do that, and the more protected everybody is from that experience.
Well, can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to throw it out there for you because I thought about this, and here's Gwendolyn in her brain. So when we cruise, they do the facial check to match it up against your passport,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've never seen another option. I believe there is one, but I've never seen another option because it's not readily available that says, hey, you don't have to come through this when you go through customs. You can do this. Is like, hey, be prepared to take your picture when you show up.
Customs might be different,
Yeah.
but like, and so it's and like we should look into that. I'll
Mhm.
definitely go see if my favorite anti-surveillance culture speaker has something about
I
that.
know you're going to give me an answer.
I'm gonna find one, but and that's the thing is, I also am gonna say, with all sincerity, be safe.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you have a politicized body, you might not feel safe, and it might not be safe for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to create that as a problem, but I also
Mm-hmm.
want to be really clear that, you know, if you are gender nonconforming, although YK is gender nonconforming and has been doing this for a long time. However, they know their rights. They're well read on it. They have they are very committed to that. And so I recognize that there's always the caveat of, you know, your situation better than anybody, so you have to figure out what's right for you. And I was certainly nervous the first time, and that made me really committed to making sure I would do it every time, because that felt like, oh, I have become conditioned. And once you become conditioned, it is much easier to be controlled. And that's really the biggest part of it, is if we're conditioned to believe that our biometric data belongs to other people, that we don't have to opt in, that they have the right to surveil us, that conditioning is 3 steps closer to the surveillance culture and potentially authoritarian terms of surveillance that none of us is okay with. And to go all the way back to what you said about New York, we talk about surveillance as crime prevention. We talk about it as investigation for crimes. And let's talk about Luigi Mangione shooting a CEO of healthcare in public and them using that surveillance to find him. However, the hundreds of other people murdered that year in New York, we're told there are not enough resources. There's no way for us to find the person that killed your brother, your uncle, your sister, your friend. And so surveillance culture is not there to benefit you or me. It is there to benefit the multi-billionaire company that is being harmed. So I get it seems great. You're like, oh yeah, it's going to get crime off the streets. It's not. It is not for you, and it is not for me. Those cameras are not there to help us at all. End of rant.
You know, it's the moment you said that, I was going to add that I remember when in the store they added cameras, because we had never had cameras in the store. And then they came in one day to add cameras, and there was a kerfuffle from a lot of us about why are we adding cameras? Because we had never had it. It's like, I don't understand. Well, you know, it was to prevent crime and blah, blah, blah. We were like, huh. Now, there were people who were thinking, they're just trying to watch us. They're trying to watch us. They're trying to make sure that we're actually working. And the first couple of weeks with it, you're kind of like, you know, you're looking at this, and then it becomes non-existent to where you just forget that they're even there. But I do remember being a brand new manager, how I was brought in the back room one evening and I was looking at these 4 camera shots. They're like, tell us what you see. And it wasn't about the crime. It was that person's not doing anything. That person's just sitting over there doing that. That person, I thought, now no one was ever in the back room to watch the cameras. I just want to make sure that's clear. We didn't have like a loss prevention team because it was just, you know, but I thought, oh, look, all these people not working. Oh my goodness. But I could also see that on the sales floor. So it's kind of like,
you don't need a camera for that.
You know, but it was interesting how I remember when they brought that in, we were not happy about it. However, if I must say so myself, there was an incident years down the line where somebody did the most disgusting thing in the bathroom. Oh my goodness. That became a whole whodunit, and we used the cameras to figure out who did.
Mhm.
Got it. So, I know that has nothing to do with surveillance, but it doesn't. It doesn't,
Well,
because you are
those
correct.
those moments are used to justify the
Yes,
constant surveillance because,
yes,
yeah, every once in a while it can be helpful,
yes, it can be.
and 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 the facts kinda speak for themselves. If
Mhm.
cameras prevented crime,
People would.
why would we be giving, police, SWAT team, weapons? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think we should give police SWAT team weapons, but I don't think the cameras are for us. I don't
No.
think they're for protecting us. I don't think they're for preventing crime. And I
Mm,
think that the more that we opt out, and like you said, I have a cell phone. I'm a
yeah.
tech person. I don't think I'm going to be fully opted out anytime soon. And it's really something I've been thinking about more and more frequently with all the services that I use. Um, because there was another article on China that I was reading about. There's no cash in China.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, they don't pay for cash with anything really. Like, I mean,
It's all
probably once
digital?
again, some very limited places. They use all of these digital things. So it's very easy to track every single citizen
Wow.
based on their money. And that's, so like and I always carry a little cash because I'm old
Yes.
school.
Yeah.
And that
Mhm.
helped me when I was in the weather event. That really helped me because I was like, oh
Yeah.
look, I can buy
You
some
have
things
cash.
now. But that's just it. Like, start thinking about those things. And I'm not suggesting you try to be some 007, prepper or whatever. But really think about your digital footprint, think about the options available to you. Look at the companies that you're working with. Like, Google does not promise privacy.
No, it doesn't.
So use a company that you feel like safer with and default to that.
Mhm.
Don't because the thing is, if you want to talk about something like, let's say you're supportive of DEI initiatives, which is now
Mhm.
apparently something we're not supposed to talk about. Um, and if you just go to your Signal app to talk about it, that doesn't look great. So you really need to be
Mhm.
defaulting to these more private channels for communication. Use disappearing messages, check what they keep on their servers, and don't get overwhelmed. Do one thing at a time. Like I said, there's services like Delete Me. You can also move from Gmail to Proton Mail. There's a few other options that are they're very respectful of privacy. Proton has a free version, and I think it's a great wake up call for all of us to just notice that we probably have been a little conditioned to share a lot more of our data by default than is potentially safe or good or healthy for us.
Golly, I started giggling because it didn't occur to me just how many cameras I have in this house. And not cameras that I'm using right now, but because I do service customers in my home by appointment, there
Yep.
are cameras all over this house and in this house, in places where I remember a friend came by and she was like, "Is that a camera?" Because she finally noticed the little red light. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And she was like, I was like, "Hey, the few times, like, I'm rarely ever in this house by myself.
Yeah.
Customers here, right?
Mhm.
The few times I have been, okay, now I'm just gonna say this: military family. I know where the guns are. I wish a bitch would, but but I also think not of protection from them, but protection from me. That in the event someone ever said this happened, there are multiple cameras inside and outside that say otherwise.
Mhm. No, that's really
Because
smart. That is
and
really
it's just,
smart.
I mean, we walk around here all day like, I mean, and for me, I mean, they're tucked away. I don't even think about it. But that also says how conditioned I am to just having a camera running like,
Mhm.
you know?
But that's your camera and you've
Yeah.
opted in, so it's different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you have a reason for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. I think it's generally good to review our assumptions and our habits. I regularly review, am I getting enough exercise? Do I drink enough water? Like, this
Yeah.
thinking about your digital health as one of the places
Mm,
that you review and reflect, and also thinking about some of those assumptions you have about what is privacy. I There was one other thing, because this is a little bit more positive of a note. But talking about some of the benefits of privacy are really beautiful. And they talk about that. Now I've lost the quote. So, never mind. I'm not going to talk about it. I lied. Oh, here it is. It's not beautiful. It's the side of like living in an age of constant connectivity. We are bombarded with information, notifications, and social interactions 24/7. There are ways, and this may seem like a boon, it has a profound psychological implication. Our brains are wired to seek moments of solitude and reflection. The digital age often deprives us of this essential downtime. The constant stream of information and the pressure to be constantly available can lead to information overload and burnout. This in turn affects our ability to focus, make decisions, and engage in deep, meaningful thinking, all of which are closely tied to our psychological well-being. And that's part of it is like, in addition to removing yourself from being surveilled, seek moments of solitude, seek that privacy, review your digital health and your, I guess, social emotional health in that way, and find ways to regenerate yourself. Because I really do think part of why people are a little bit at odds is they are genuinely just so mentally exhausted all the time because they don't have any space.
Yeah. That was an ending fit for this episode.
Thank you so much for doing this with me, G. I really appreciate it.
I wrote down some things, and you get to thinking again, and I can't help but go back to how it's just conditioned, not questioned. And from the way it's looking, we gotta start questioning some things. That's for damn sure.
I gotta start questioning some things. Some things we really like.
Oh my God. Thank you everybody for tuning into this episode. I don't know what's next on the menu.
I think we're gonna have to come up with that. It's surprise next time. Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. Sounds like a plan. See you guys. Oh, well, I guess I should hit the...
You just wanted to see how long I can sit here.